I'm Abby, and this is Crosspoint. And today you've joined us for one of the best things that happens here all year, At the Movies. In our At the Movies teaching series, we take a look at some of the biggest movies of the year and the spiritual meanings behind these films. Today we're going to be looking at the film Fly Me to the Moon as we try to discover the truth about love, which is something I think we'd all love to experience more of. So we're glad that you're here. Now the best part of joining us at the Movies is this. If it's your first time with us, we've got some free movie tickets coming your way. And here's how you can get them. If you scan this QR code, we'll drop some movie tickets in the mail for you this week, simply as a way of saying thank you for joining us. And if someone invited you, we'd love to know that too, so we can hook them up with some free tickets as well. Now, before we dive into today's movie, I want to share with you a couple of ways that you can connect with us at Crosspoint outside of the weekend service. First, for middle school and high school students, we've got something big in store for you beginning this weekend. Check this out. I am so excited. This is going to be amazing. Crosspoint Student Ministries is kicking off the school year with this incredible event called The Chase, which if you're watching this broadcast on Sunday, August 11th, The Chase begins tonight at 6. At The Chase, students will be divided into two teams for a multi-week Olympic-themed competition filled with fun challenges, opportunities to make new friends, and relevant messages from some pretty amazing speakers. Each week is designed to be an easy entry point for new students, including incoming 7th graders. So no need to stress before you show up. Students, you can pre-register right here and skip the line when you come. We cannot wait to see you. If you're up for a good party, no matter how old you are, we want to invite you to our pre-Labor Day weekend after party on Thursday, August 29th. This is a great space to invite a friend to come with you to the Crosspoint campus for the Thursday early weekend service, which happens every Thursday, and stay for this special after party with some pub snacks, summer beverages, both kid-friendly and the adult variety. We'd love to see you as we kick off that holiday weekend early right here at Crosspoint. Last, the Commons Coffee Bar at Crosspoint is now open all week long. This is not just our lobby, but it's a place to connect, to meet for coffee, to grab some free Wi-Fi, or just come hang out because you like the music and the atmosphere. We call it the Commons because it is for everyone. So if you need some workspace outside the office or home, or want to meet a friend for coffee, or if you're just looking to come hang out during the week, we'd love to see you here. All right, we've got a great service today. We're gonna be asking the question, what is love really? Love is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts in our world today. And not only is it something that we all want more of in our lives, but for those of us who are people of faith, it's also our job. Now, toward the end, we're gonna be taking communion together as a community. Now, traditionally, that's bread and wine or juice, but I'm giving you a heads up now to say, grab something to eat and something to drink. Anything will do just fine. Now, before we hear from Curt, check out this trailer from this weekend's movie, Fly Me to the Moon.
Hey, Joe. Eating cold? Miss, you're on fire.
Very original. No, I do not want to stop, drop, and roll with you.
No, your book is on fire.
Oh my God.
Alcohol and flames, they like each other. Cold days.
Kelly Jones.
Public support for the moon mission is rock bottom.
Every day, something is breaking.
And we're dead. Again.
Yeah, or blowing up.
The space program is a bloated mess.
NASA needs a marketing specialist, and you are the very best.
Excuse me? What are you doing here?
I tracked you down because I felt we had a connection.
What?
I'm joking. I work here now to sell the moon.
NASA's not something that you sell with a jingle and a slogan.
When I'm done, those men are going to be bigger than the Beatles.
Who is that?
For me, this is very personal.
He's got my name.
You told me that your guys don't do interviews, so I had to hire new guys.
I'm here for the casting.
Who's he?
You're a juicy part.
60 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea. How's that?
What?
The whole world will be watching. We can't afford to lose to the Russians. We need to shoot the backup version of the moon landing.
You mean to fake it? No one can ever know what we're doing.
I cannot accept that.
They will shoot you.
What is my budget?
Oh, boy.
I know a lot more about the moon than I know about you.
Give me go, no go for launch. If you fake this mission, every single thing that we have sacrificed will have been for nothing.
You know you couldn't have made it to this day without me.
4, 3, 2, 1.
My Armstrong is a whiny little bitch. We have to recast.
I think we should have gotten Kubrick.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to Crosspoint and welcome to At the Movies. You know, we take a look at some of the biggest movies hitting the big screen. We actually look at the meaning, the spiritual meaning behind these movies. So super excited you're with us today. My name's Curt. And if you're here for the first time, we are not joking. You actually get free movie tickets. Make sure you hit the connection card. That's how you'll get those. And that includes those online. You can hit that connection card and you'll have movie tickets coming your way. In fact, let's share some love with those joining us online this weekend. So excited to have you join us. We're, you made a good choice joining us this weekend. And we're looking at this romantic comedy, Fly Me to the Moon, and we're going to kind of dig into, okay, what actually is the truth about love? Because this is a movie that's partly about love. As you saw in the trailer here, this is a movie set in 1969, and there's kind of two main figures here. We have a woman, Kelly, who is a marketing strategist, and then we have this young NASA flight director by the name of Cole, and they're basically tasked with, coming up with a plan B if the mission to the moon, to put a man on the moon, doesn't go the way that we plan. And basically the goal was to beat the Soviets to the moon. And so, what they're tasked to do is basically stage a fake moon landing in case the original mission doesn't, pan out. And so it's also a romantic comedy. And so, there's some conspiracy, and there's these turning stories into, to unrealities. I mean, there's all kinds of unique things. And yet, in the midst of all this, Kelly and Cole also are falling in love with one another. And so we're going to talk about love a bit, because being a romantic comedy, love is something we all want to know about. We all probably have questions about. We experience it at times. We wonder if we experience it. And so we're going to take a look at this word love today and kind of try to unpack, what does that look like? Now, since we are in a series At the Movies, I thought maybe a great way to start would be to look at some of the biggest romantic lines ever from movies. You guys want to do that? You want to play a little game? All right, so I'm going to put these on the screen, and you just shout them out. If you know these movies, you shout it out. Let us know what the movie is. All right, you guys ready? All right, here we go. You complete me. Wow, look at you guys, which is absolutely a lie right there, right? Nobody completes anybody. I mean, as much as we think, I hear this all the time, do weddings, people are like, oh, he completes me. I'm like, oh, man, you're in for a long life. Doesn't really work that way, but that's what the movies tell us. All right, here's another one. Love is never having to say you're sorry. Old school. Oh, Love Story, look at that, which also is totally a lie. Love actually is a lot about saying I'm sorry. All right, but it's a good line. And then here's one, perhaps the most romantic movie ever. We'll have Paris, and here's looking at you, kid. Casablanca. Did I hear that? Yeah. All right, look at that. Yeah, the most romantic movie ever right there. Now, here's the reality. We love these lines. We love movies that talk about love. This movie is about a lot of things, but it is about love. Now, almost all that we learn about love in movies, is about half right at best and completely wrong at worst. And so, including this movie, Fly Me to the Moon. And so what we're going to do for the rest of our time is we're going to look at this, and we're going to kind of do a deep dive on this, and we're going to ask the question, okay, what is love? What is love?
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. hurt me. I want no other, no other lover. This is your time, this is your time. We are together, I need you forever. Is it love? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Yeah, come on, let's give it up, yeah. What is love? What is love? You know, I'm really convinced that I just don't know that our culture knows what love is. I really don't. And I'm not talking about the increasingly agnostic, atheistic side of our culture. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about people even that gather in churches, people like you and me, people that come to Crosspoint, people that are in relationships, out of relationships. I mean, I think we have this question, what is love? What is it actually? You know, love is not, you know, some soft, ethereal, philosophical, you know, feeling that washes over you. It can wash over you. I mean, it's amazing when it washes over you. We can actually feel that. We can actually sense when it comes to our Heavenly Father, the love of God. And so today, I really want us to look at some word pictures that describe what love is. We see in this movie, Fly Me to the Moon, we see, you know, two people that are in love. We see, you know, things that sometimes are facades of what we think love is. But I want us to take a look at some of the real pictures. So we're going to look at the the New Testament today, and we're going to look at a guy named Paul. We talk about him all the time around here at Crosspoint, and he's cool because, you know, he's not somebody who originated in a home that talked about Jesus. He kind of grew into that. He kind of discovered Jesus and then made the decision, oh my gosh, this guy really is who he says he is. And then he began to help other people discover and experience him. And so he writes all these letters. And one of the core things that Paul talks about is that we can actually know and experience real love. And this is something that we all, I think, want to experience. But, you know, for those of us who also have taken a step to follow Jesus, this is something we're actually called to do. This is like our job. And so I want us to look at Ephesians chapter 3, verse 17. All right, here's what Paul says. He says, I pray that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and I pray that you, being rooted and grounded in judgmentalism. That'll work it out, right? Just be judgmental. That's not what he says at all. He says, I want you to be rooted and grounded in being seen. Like, make sure everybody on Instagram and the TikTok see you all the time. Make sure you're out there. No, he doesn't say that. He says, here's our word. I want you to be rooted and grounded in love, and that you may have strength together with all the saints. What is the breadth, the length, and the height, and the depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses all knowledge, that you may be, and look at this phrase, filled with all the fullness of God. Filled with all the fullness of God. For you and I to actually be filled with the fullness of God, we have to have an understanding of the love of God. All right, and that's a really hard thing. It actually says right here that it's nearly impossible. It says it's impossible because the love of God actually surpasses human understanding. And there's 4 dimensions of it. I don't know if you caught that right here. 4 dimensions. He says, you know, the breadth, the length, the height, and the depth. He says these are the dimensions of God right here. And these dimensions we actually see in the life and the character of the person of Jesus. And so my hope, my prayer is that as a result of our time, it might be through something you hear, through something that perhaps I say, through a song or a note, or, you know, maybe it's somebody that serves you in a unique way, that you, as a result of our time, you come into a better understanding of what that looks like. And I'm telling you, when that happens, it's life-changing. It really is. I mean, when we truly begin to experience that love, listen, you can weather any criticism that comes your way. You can weather difficult, you know, challenges in life that comes your way because, you know, God's love is actually fueling you. Now, there's another verse I want us to look at, Romans chapter 8. And this is a verse I've really been spending some time with. I've been kind of close to this verse. You know, I've dealt with a number of challenges, difficulties over the last number of months, both personally and professionally. And this verse has meant a lot to me. It says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. So God uses, he says, some things, no. He doesn't say some things, most things, no. He says God uses all things. And what he says is when you spot difficulty in your life, when you come into a difficult moment, he says, when you love God, when you recognize, okay, I was created for his purposes, and he says, all of a sudden, God will use all things to actually help us experience him. Doesn't mean we feel the love all the time. Doesn't mean it feels good all the time. But he says, no, God actually works things toward the good. The problem is that so many times it's not that we don't know how to sense love. I just don't know that we fully understand it. I don't know that I think sometimes we feel it, sometimes we don't feel it, but I just want you to know you are loved. All right, God has loved you, and history is altered. Think about this, it's altered because of it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And yet at the same time, sometimes we just don't feel it. I don't feel it, right? We don't feel what we should be feeling in reality. And so, and oftentimes that just shows that there's layers and layers of pain that actually keep us from seeing and sensing it. All right, so I want to do a deep dive for the rest of our time on a passage that you've probably heard before. And this is another letter that Paul writes, and it's to these people in Corinth. It's known as the book of Corinthians. And I want us to look at chapter 13, and this is perhaps one of the best explanations of love. So we can look at movies, Fly Me to the Moon, the movies we referenced earlier, and we get pictures of what we want love to be, but this is perhaps the best picture ever right here. And it's based on the integrity and the character of who the person of Jesus is. And so here's what Paul says. He says, if I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I have nothing. If I give all that I have away, if I deliver up my body to be burned, I'll explain that, that's a bit weird, but have not love, I gain nothing. All right, so where have you heard that verse before? Weddings, yes. Listen, I performed over 100 weddings. I've been to many more. I don't think there's a single wedding I've ever done or performed that we have not in some way shared this passage right here. Now, it's actually pretty strange when you think about it because the statistics today say half of marriages end in divorce. And so this must not be helping people, all right? I don't know if there's something wrong here, and I don't know that it's in the actual, passage or the components in the passage. I think, again, the problem is we're not doing it. We don't understand it, all right? And so what's wrong when we read these love passages, and this happens when we see movies too. We see these movies like, oh, that must be what love is right there, but we think it's all about the feelings and the emotions, and all of this passage right here is actually actions. All right, these are actually the actions that embody what it means to love someone. And so let's just kind of break this down. Paul says, hey, you might do all kinds of spiritual things. You might know people in your life that are hyper-religious. They're so religious. You're like, wow, they're just really spiritual. You know what Paul says? He says, hey, if you do all that, but you don't know how to love people, guess what? He says, you have nothing. He says, you can speak in a language of men. You can speak in the language of heaven. I've never learned how to do that, by the way. He says, you can do that, and if you can do that, it's impressive to people. Guess what? If you don't know how to love people, none of it matters. He says, you might understand the cosmos. You might have prophetic moments where you get utterings or visions from God, and they may even be true, but, you may be able to do that. But guess what? If you don't know how to love people, he says, you have nothing. He even goes on to say, you might go as a missionary to a foreign land. I mean, you might go to a place and sell everything that you have. You might even be in a hostile environment where there's a lot of hostility, it's very dangerous, and you might even be killed for your faith. You might make a stand for your faith, whether for the right or the wrong. I mean, it could be your wrong-headedness that drives that, but for whatever reason, you might go, oh man, I just gave my life up right there. And what Paul's saying is, but if you don't know how to love people, he says, we have nothing. So we go, okay, what exactly is love then? Well, I want to take us to this next section of what Paul says. And as we do that, most of us have this little thing called a smartphone. If you have a smartphone, I want you to take it out. I want you to go ahead and take it out, open it up. And if you have a Bible app on your smartphone, I want you to open the Bible app and go to 1 Corinthians 13. Now, if you don't have the Bible app, I recommend YouVersion Bible app. You can scan this QR code. It'll take you right to where you can download it. And I just encourage you to put that on your phone if you're interested in growing and understanding God, because it's like the Bible at your fingertips. Now, you could use the fuddy-duddy paper Bible. That's totally cool. All right, and here, you won't be able to see it because we're dim lights in this place, so, you're going to have a hard time seeing that, but it's cool if you brought your Bible. So excited you have your Bible with you. But you can also have it on your phone, so go ahead and pull that up, and wherever it says, if you're in the YouVersion app, it says Bible at the bottom, hit that, and then go to 1 Corinthians. We're going to look at chapter 13. I'm going to read this from the English Standard Version, all right, ESV. If you want to follow along, you can follow along. Here's what Paul says right here in verse 4 and following. He says, says, love is patient and kind. It does not envy or boast. It's not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not, think about this, rejoice in wrongdoing, but it rejoices with truth. Love bears all things. It believes all things. It hopes all things. It endures all things. Love never comes to an end. I'll tell you what, if you understand this form of love, if you ever get married, I'm guarantee you, you will have an entirely different marriage, all right, one that doesn't end. And if you practice this form of love, all right, because that's what this is. Love is practices, attitudes, and actions. That's what love is. All right, and the more you and I do this, I'm telling you, regardless of if it's a romantic relationship, regardless if it's a friend relationship, if it's with people in your work that you interact with, the more you do this, you're going to have a oneness with people and you're going to have a oneness with God. I'm telling you, you can't get there just operating out of normal things. Even with things we see in movies like Fly Me to the Moon, it's amazing. Love the movie. It's just that we get these inaccurate pictures of love. So what is love? This is the best definition I've ever come across right here. Let's do a deep dive on this. First of all, patience. What is patience? Love is this. Love is patient. Patient. I'm forcing you to be patient right now. Love is patient. How many times do you have to be patient? Some of you are like, oh, where's my phone? I have my phone out. I'm not doing anything right at the moment. No, how often do we actually stop and have the ability to be patient? Like right now, some of you are going, oh man, I think he's going to say something else. Is he done? What are we doing? Let me tell you something. That actually made me feel really good right there. You know why? Because you all hung in there. Nobody walked out. You guys actually, you trusted me and you hung in there with me. Love is patient. You know what love does? It waits. It bears with. It hangs in there. Paul says love is kind. You know, these past number of months, been dealing with a number of stresses in my life. You probably have a number in yours as well. And there was a day a friend came to my house and he said, hey, I got some of your favorite beers. We're going to sit down. We're just going to enjoy just kind of connecting for a bit. And that's what we did. That was just kindness right there. That was love in the form of kindness right there. Meaning he brought something, went and got something he knew that I enjoyed, brought it for me. We sat down, we talked, we laughed, just had a good time. That was kindness. I felt love in that. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. When somebody does that, those are rare moments. Very few moments where I actually experienced something like that. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Love doesn't envy. You know, when I envy somebody else, all right, when I envy somebody's job, or I'm like, oh man, I'd love their car, or man, they got a really good physique. When I'm thinking about that thing, guess what I'm not thinking about? I'm not thinking about you. Right? I'm thinking about that object or that attribute, but objects and attributes aren't able to be loved, right? People are the things that are able to be loved. I mean, it's insidious how much we are, kind of motivated to envy in our world today. I mean, we have a culture that's kind of 24/7 selling us on, hey, you don't have this, look at them. We're comparing ourselves. When we're comparing ourselves, listen, I can't love you. I can't love and compare at the same time. Now, this is actually one of the reasons that, like, in Church Universal, all the way back to like the roots of the Christian church, Catholicism. This is one of the reasons that, centuries ago that like nuns would wear common robes, still do in many cases today. It wasn't like, hey, we want to set ourselves apart and look different, so I'm going to wear a habit or a robe. No, it was actually when we go to the monastery, we don't want to be looking at one another, comparing ourselves, going, oh, I like your robe, I like your shoes. We want to eliminate that, because if I'm comparing myself, I actually can't, be loving you. And so, that was actually the heart behind some of the ancient vestments. It was this idea of love doesn't envy. Love doesn't boast. Love doesn't boast. When I boast, I'm actually exalting myself. When I'm exalting myself, guess what? I'm not loving you. All right? When I'm trying to spend time sneaking in, hey, did you hear what I did? Sneaking in my accomplishments, guess what? I'm not loving. I'm not in a posture to love. My kids, every single time they have kind of a big test or a tryout or just kind of a defining moment, I always give them 2 words. I say, hey, I want you to just remember 2 words as you step into that. The same 2 words I pray for myself every time I step on this platform. I do it multiple times a weekend. Every time I get ready to step on this platform, I think of these 2 words. The 2 words are confidence and humility. Confidence and humility. I tell them, hey, I want you to be confident, and I want you to do that with humility. And some of us go, confidence and humility? Isn't confidence and humility like opposites? No, it's actually not. In fact, my son this summer was reading a book, and he said, Dad, you got to read this book. When my son says you got to read this book, I'm like on that like a fly on flypaper, all right? And so the book is called, they call me Coach. It's the story of John Wooden, and a fantastic book on his life and just his leadership. And he has this phrase, he says, confidence actually comes from being prepared. And so whenever you step into something, I tell them, I say, hey, I want you to have confidence. You prepared, you're ready, step into that with that confidence, and do it with humility. Do it with humility, because love doesn't boast. Love's not arrogant. Arrogance never allows ourselves to believe that we're wrong. I mean, we see this in this movie. We see a struggle with arrogance. I mean, when you're operating at NASA, when you're operating as the top, kind of marketer in the country, I mean, arrogance is a big problem. Arrogance tells us to believe that it's always someone else's fault. Arrogance is interesting because it actually causes us to not listen to someone else because, it sometimes even kind of communicate that you're less than. You're not really worth listening to. And yet, we can't think of someone that's as less than and at the same time love them, right? I mean, think about this. All of us are less than, Jesus, the very Son of God, right? But Jesus didn't go around going, oh man, you're less than me. You are so much less than. You know what Jesus does? He says, no, you're actually worthy. He actually elevates us. He actually lifts us up, puts us on his level. He says, hey, yeah, you're a friend. So love is not arrogant. Love is not rude. Love is not rude. I've noticed, how you build a social media platform today? If you just pay attention, oftentimes, some of the biggest followers in the country, it's by being rude. I mean, it's just, you go out and you say these bombastic things, you rile up your group, you say all these punchy, rude things, you kind of be pitiful to people, and it's just rudeness, and it kind of it humiliates people, makes us think of people as less than, and that's just the way, you get people's attention. And yet Jesus goes, oh, no, you're a masterpiece. Actually, everybody's a masterpiece. And you were uniquely formed by God, just like that other person was uniquely formed by God. They may be different than you, but they're a masterpiece. I mean, I struggle with this at times. I struggle with rudeness. We probably all do at times. I was thinking about a time when I was on a plane earlier this summer, and when I fly, by the way, I don't fly business class or first class. I'm back in slumming it and coach with the rest of normal people. And the worst part of slumming it and coach, it's the normal size seats. That is the worst part of being in coach. You guys know what I'm talking about? The normal size seats. You're sitting back there, and the person beside you, in fact, let me just kind of clear this up. If you don't know this, let me just give a little moment here. So the thing between you that we call an armrest, it's not really an armrest, all right? It's actually a barrier. I don't know if you knew this or not. It's actually a barrier. This is how you love people. It's a barrier to kind of show okay, your space is over on this side of the barrier, my space is on this side, and that thing, it runs all the way to the floor, and it draws an invisible line, just in case you're wondering. And so, when you're sitting there, I mean, if you can lean up against it, that's totally cool, but when you're got your whole arm lapped over on the barrier, that's just not that's kind of rude, right? And so I'm sitting on this flight, and it's about midway through the flight, and all of a sudden, the guy next to me apparently hadn't learned that lesson. It's a barrier, not an armrest. And so, he's sitting there, and he starts falling asleep on the armrest and coming over. And not only that, but he's wearing shorts, and his hairy leg starts coming into my space. I never wear shorts when I fly for this very reason, but I did this day. His hairy leg touches my leg, and I'm like, come on, seriously. And and I'm a bit annoyed at this moment. I'm gonna be honest, I'm bothered. But I pause and I go, okay, God made this person. All right, Jesus died for this person. All right, if Jesus can die on a cross out of love for that person, I probably shouldn't punch that guy for letting his knee come over the invisible barrier, right? I need to just have a little grace. And if you put that through the filter of plane etiquette, it does nothing, right? It doesn't help at all. But if I think in that moment, okay, this is a person that God loves, and I need to love this person, and even though this is inconveniencing me right now, I'm not going to necessarily insist on my own way or what I think needs to be done right here. In fact, that's actually the next thing Paul says. He says, love does not insist on its own way. It doesn't mean that everything we say, God's oh, I'm cool with that. There's this thing in our culture where, sometimes we'll say things like, well, that's my truth. That's my personal truth right there, which I kind of cringe when I hear that because, nobody owns truth. I wish we'd, say more like, hey, these are my convictions or these are my beliefs. But, you can't have a truth that's different than my truth because, we don't set it. Truth is there. It's just principles that are there. I mean, they're there whether we agree with them or not. It's just there. And we can't own truth, all right? God kind of establishes those things. And yet the crazy thing is even when I feel like I'm understanding the truth and how things work, that doesn't mean necessarily that I need to insist on my own way. Just like when I'm with my wife, and we're going out on a date and she wants Chinese and I want pizza. I mean, I don't need to just necessarily insist that because this is what I want. And God knows we should have pizza, that that's what we need to do, right? And so, a loving person actually gives way to people around them. Again, this is something we don't always see in the movies. This is something that we struggle. We see these pictures of these romantic, they wooed me and they swept me off my feet. But a loving person actually yields and allows another person's desires to happen. That's part of what love is. Love is not irritable or resentful. Can I ask you, is there anybody in America that's not irritable right now? Have you noticed this? It's stock market, interest rates, it seems like everything, like the economy, inflation. In fact, I saw a CBS poll recently that said 84% of people believe Americans are more irritable right now than previous generations. Some of you are irritable that I use CBS polls right there. Some of you wish it was Fox News or it was CNN. You're irritable. You're I just can't believe you did that. All right, so, here's the thing, though. Let's think about this for a moment. How about Simone Biles? Let's talk about Simone Biles for a moment. Have you guys enjoyed Simone? Has she not been amazing? Oh, my word. I think why she's been so inspiring to me is I go back to 4 years ago when our whole country seemed to be down on her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such a disappointing moment. I mean, she steps out of the Olympics dealing with mental health stuff and people are like, oh, that's not an excuse. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Why are we irritable over somebody actually standing up for something that's so real? In fact, we're going to take a look at Inside Out 2 in a couple weeks and actually look at how to deal with what we feel. I mean, this is something God has a lot to say about and we need to be in tune with this. But I just feel like this has been a redeeming moment for her right here. And I know for me, listen, when I'm irritable, I always have a justifiable reason to be irritable. You probably do too, right? I'm like, here's why I'm irritable right now. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I'm to love. All right, meaning I'm not to be known as somebody who's irritable and always resentful. And I tell you what, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to think that God is not resentful to me. Listen, I do things every single week that I'm pretty confident. I'm like, God, you have got to be irritated with me. I write in my journal many mornings, I'm like, God, your grace is, I am so unfaithful at times, and yet you are so faithful. You could be so irritated with me, and yet he's not irritated with me, even when I'm wrong. You know why? Because he uses all things. Not some things, he uses all things according to his purposes to bring about good. And I think God just asks us, he says, hey, what if we were to just love other folks with a fraction of that kind of love that he's given to us? He says, love doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing. So many times he's a hypocrite. I just caught him right there. They're a hypocrite. God, love doesn't rejoice in that. What's funny about this? I actually went through this a bit with our staff team this week, and I was going through some of these different components, and I actually did this very one. I actually became a hypocrite. I actually fell into actually kind of criticizing someone. It's like, well, they don't really do what they say they're about. And I got home, and I was convicted. I go, oh my gosh, I was rejoicing right there in someone's wrongdoing. We're drawn at times to stoke negative feelings. Paul says, no, love doesn't do that. He says, actually, here's what love does. Love bears all things. Love bears all things. Now this is fascinating right here because what does that mean? I think Crosspoint, for the last 17 years of my life, Crosspoint has perhaps been one of the most loving communities I've ever been a part of. It really has. And let me tell you why. It's mainly because you bear with me. You bear with me. I know there's times where you probably don't agree with some of the things that I do or say, or there's times where I tell a story. Sometimes people are like, you told that story. I just don't know that I think that was the right thing you should have done. But you know what you do? you bear with me anyway. You bear with, and it's crazy. In fact, one of our other pastors came on staff a couple years ago, Abby, director of Crosspoint Student Ministries. We would debrief, as a staff on Mondays, and when she first joined our team, she would, we debrief the weekend, and then she'd say something like, I just want to know, like, how many emails did you get, based on what you said this weekend? And I'm like, oh, would you believe 0? And she's like, you are kidding me. And she's like, man, the church I came from, like, you couldn't say some of the things, and just not like they were wrong, just like the authenticity and the nature of just like hitting things head on the way that we sometimes do. And so, let me just say, man, when you bear with me over my rough spots, I've got a number of rough spots, but and I also bear with you over your rough spots. And let me be honest, you got a bunch of rough spots. It's amazing that when someone bears with you and you know that they love you, you know what you begin to feel? You begin to feel love. That's what you begin to feel, right? Paul says love hopes all things. Love hopes all things. This is hard. I think in our country right now, we have so much cynicism going on. I mean, I think, you look around, people think our best days are behind us. I mean, you look around, people are like, oh man, China's taking over. I mean, China's taking over. We're gonna be second place. Our government's getting worse and worse. Everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Listen, I don't know where your head is. Like, just look at some of these statistics right here. Look at this, violent crime. Violent crime in the United States over the last two years, down 25%. Over the last 2 decades, down 49%. All right? Over the past 5 years, the clean energy gap is widening. I mean, we have more work to do there, but it's widening. Things are pointing in a good direction. All right, global hunger index. We have less hunger in the world today than we ever have in the history of our world. Look at all the major points where there's major food scarcity. All of them are going down, down, down. Even with some of the issues going on in Ukraine and Gaza and the things in our world where there is some scarcity with food. But guess what? If we believe this idea that everything is getting worse, 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 all of a sudden we just lose hope. I mean, sometimes we got to get our head out of ourselves, out of our area, and say, okay, there's bigger things going on in the world. Because love and hope actually go hand in hand. And love believes the best in someone, and love chooses to believe the best in someone. The same is true when it comes to our workplaces. The same is true when it comes to our homes and our marriages. Same is true when it comes to, when it comes to church. I mean, when it comes to in communities like this. Listen, I know, here at Crosspoint, I mean, everybody in the world's been through a season. The last 4 or 5 years, rebuilding out of the pandemic. There's a lot of, challenge and difficulty. At the same time, I know for some of us, it's just like, man, I have a hard time seeing the hope. All right, and it's hard to believe the best and see the best, and it's easy to just kind of show up and go through the motions and not see that, like, our purpose isn't just to be here. It's like, how do I help other people experience the hope of God in a unique way? And to do that, I have to have hope. And I get so bummed sometimes when I see, people just like not having hope, but then my like botheredness actually turns into like sadness. Because I'm like, oh, it just breaks my heart that there's not a hope right there. Can I just tell you, man, the Spirit is alive and well here. I tell you what, I have been so encouraged over the last few weeks. We've been dealing with things like an investment group and, working on some solutions for the future. Some of these meetings, I've been sitting in these, and I've been so encouraged by people that are just like, oh my gosh, I have so much hope, and I want what people to experience what I've experienced, and I'm going to reorient things in my life. And I wish I could tell you all the stories and God moments. And this has been happening with people that have been here long term, people that have been here for a short term. They're just like, oh my gosh, I'm excited about this, but there has been a lot of hope and people living out of hope and love. And that's what hope and that's what love does. And that's when God hadn't forgotten about us at all. In fact, God uses all things. Not some, not most. He says, no, I use all things according to my purpose for those who see that of a future. But when we begin to lose hope, we begin to lose love. And the inverse is true as well. When we begin to lose love, we ultimately begin to lose hope. Because love endures all things. That's the last thing Paul says right here. He says, love endures all things. Love endures someone when they gossip. Love endures financial ruin. Love endures hurtful, awful words. We see in this movie a moment where there are hurtful, awful words. It's one of the places this movie really gets it right. Where there's hurtful, awful words, and yet there's a love that's being cultivated, and it has the ability to actually endure and to keep going. I think this is perhaps why so many people today are abandoning the faith. It's because at the core they lacked love. which is a necessity. It's an endearing quality because love actually endures. Again, in this book that my son recommended this summer called They Called Me Coach, I've been kind of blown away. I knew John Wooden was a man of gravity, a man of faith. He's not a real outward person. He doesn't wear it on his sleeve, but he's driven by like these principles. And I want you to just listen to a few of his words right here as he talks about the role of love and faith and what he does. And remember, he's one of the most decorated basketball coaches ever in the history of the world. He says, in my profession as a basketball coach, I must be deeply concerned with God's belief in me and be truly interested in the welfare of my fellow man. No coach should be trusted with the tremendous responsibility of handling young men under such great mental, emotional, and physical strain to which they are subjected unless he is spiritually strong. If he does possess this inner strength, it is only because he has faith and truly loves his fellow man. I was like, wow. That's the way he's coaching. That's the way he raised young men, not only in basketball, but in life. Another spiritual great, Billy Graham, he put it this way. He said, the Holy Spirit's job is to convict. The Father, Heavenly Father's job is to judge. He says, my job, your job, is to love. It's to love. That doesn't mean that sometimes we don't get our toes stepped on. All right, that doesn't mean, even things we talk about here, doesn't mean sometimes things don't pierce a little bit. It doesn't mean we don't talk, with a friend and challenge them forward and say, hey, come on, man, I want to pull you to I want to push you. I want to help you go to a higher place. I want to help you be accountable. Doesn't mean we don't have difficult conversations. We have difficult conversations all the time. But that can happen in love, out of the Spirit and the words and the actions that are modeled in the person of Jesus. And see, I just think we miss this. We say, well, I love my dog. I love this guy. I love my car. I love the Colts. Anybody love the Colts right now? A little love for the Colts this week? Yeah, we got some love for the Colts. We see this in Fly Me to the Moon. This word love, I think it gets missed as we've talked about it today so many times because we see the superficial side. And in this movie, the whole point of this movie is they're trying to change the narrative on a story if it didn't go the way they wanted it. But what we also see is there's kind of this facade on love as well. And at the end of the day, I think what I hope we can see and experience is that the love that changes things, it's transformational, it's based on the character and the identity in the person of Jesus. In fact, 1 John 3:16. In fact, I'm going to invite the band to come out. We're gonna do an experience here as we close today. We're going to share in a meal. We're going to share in a meal that followers of Jesus have been sharing in for thousands of years. The Eucharist, the Mass, the Lord's Supper. In fact, go ahead and take your bag out that you got when you came in, and those of you tuning online, just grab whatever food and drink you have available. God knows your heart on this. These words right here aren't typical communion passage words right here, but this is a great love passage in terms of this experience we're about to partake in. It says, but this we know, love, by this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth. And so we do this. We do this expression, these actions of love, not in word, but because Jesus loved us in deed and in truth. In fact, the night he was arrested, he was sweating blood that night. Literally sweating blood. It's so much anxiety and stress over the moment that he knew was coming. That's what happens with the body, that when we get in those moments, our body, our pores actually, when we're under immense stress, can actually emit drops of blood. He basically goes to the Father and he's like, hey, Father, I don't want to do the cross. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't know if he knew the brutality of what it was going to take before that moment. I don't know if he knew days or weeks before, but in this moment, he knows the brutal death he's facing right here. He says, I don't want to do it. And yet he says, the Father, but not my will, but your will be done. And that's what love does. Love bears all things. It endures all things. And so at the Last Supper, he took the bread. In fact, I want you to go ahead and take your bread, and you can just open your crackers up right here. And if you've received Christ, if you're somebody who's taken a step to receive the grace of Jesus in your life, take advantage of that. I want you to go ahead and take a cracker. And if you haven't taken that step yet, perhaps today's the day you want to take that. Maybe today's the day you want to say for the first time, you know, Jesus, I need a Savior. I do want to take advantage of your grace. I do want to make you the leader. You can say that right now under your breath. Just tell Jesus that. I mean, that's really the passageway for you receiving this scandalous grace he offers you. And sometimes we go, well, what else do I have to do? What do I have to? That's it. It's scandalous. It's remarkable. I mean, there's no other explanation. You just have to say, Jesus, I want to know your goodness and your grace. I want you to lead me. I want to give my life to you. And then this meal becomes a remembrance of his love for us. And so Jesus took the bread and he said, whenever you gather together, I want you to break the bread. I want you to remember how my body was broken for you. All right, lovingly broken for you. And then he said, I want you to take and eat. So let's do that. Let's take and eat. You can go ahead and open up your juice vial. And if you're at home, grab your drink. Jesus took the cup and he said, this represents the blood of the covenant poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. And we hear this, we go, oh my gosh, I thought it was for everybody. Well, it actually is. It is available to everybody. It's just that Jesus knew only many would receive it. We have to receive it. We have to actually be willing to receive. And so Jesus then goes and he lays himself down later that night on a wooden cross. He's lifted up and there's a pool of blood that gathers underneath the cross. And he kind of says, hey, this is how much I love you. I mean, that's a moment showing us. And if you've ever wondered that, if you've ever wondered what you're worth, like how do you know what you're worth? How do you know what your house is worth? How do you know what your house is worth today? Its worth is based on what somebody will pay for it, right? And we go, oh gosh, well, are we in a boom? Are we in a bust in the house? How do I know my house is worth, what they say it's worth? Well, I mean, apparently your house is worth a lot. People are paying like top dollar, even over asking price even at times. But you say, okay, but how do I know what it's worth? Well, it's worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And this is one of those moments where the Heavenly Father, he saw you years back, and he thought of you, and he said, this is how much. I want to show you how much you're worth. I'm going to give my son for you. I just want you to know that's how much you're worth. So this is like the inflection point of the whole story of faith. Because he loves you. You may not feel that he loves you. Right? I hope you can feel it, but I want you to know he loves you. And it doesn't matter what you did last night sexually. It doesn't matter what you did last week that you shouldn't have done, or you didn't do last week that you should have done. He looks at all that stuff and he says, yeah, those actions don't change anything. He says, I love you. The blood of Jesus given for you in love. Let's take and drink. Let's go ahead and stand. I want to pray for us. I want to pray that God would just maybe wash that kind of love over us, whatever you need and wherever you maybe need to grow and what it means to express that. Father, thank you. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for the opportunity that we have to look at movies, these pictures, these things we see on the big screen that give us pictures that we're drawn to and things we want to experience, but we realize sometimes they're hollow. And in this case, this idea of love and what it really means to have a love, God, we thank you for the picture you gave us and the breadth and the length and the depth and the broadness. I mean, God, man, forgive me. I don't even know fully have the words to explain. You say it's almost to understand it surpasses our ability. So God, I hope my words helped give it justice today. And God, it's just too great and too wonderful, but we trust that we got even a few drops of it in our mind and in our hearts today. And God, just show us what it means to not only live in this and receive it, but God, to share this week with our friends, our family, and our relationships. And we pray these things. And now we're going to sing these things. We're going to tell you how much we love you. And God, I pray that your love would wash over us in this moment as well.
Fails me all my days. I've been held in your hands from the moment that I wake up until I lay my head. I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. All right, let's put those hands together. Let me hear you. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. My life laid down, surrender now, give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. My life laid down, surrender now, give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in today. We hope that you are feeling that love. And if you like that song, you can check out our recently heard section on our app for all the music that you heard today. Now, a couple of things before you go. If you made a decision today to receive that grace from Jesus, we would love to hear that. Just let us know on your connection card and be sure to hit send. And again, if this is your first time with us, we'll have free movie tickets headed your way as well. Before we send you off, if you'd like someone from our team to pray with you for something specific this week, perhaps you've got something going on, you can text the keyword "need prayer" right now to 317-834-7373, and one of our prayer team volunteers will be in touch with you today. If you're a giver here at Crosspoint, thank you for your generosity to the Joy Box. Crosspoint is completely donor funded, and that means every amount of money you give helps spread this message that you've heard today, helps people understand Jesus and experience more and more of the love and the hope that he brings to our lives. If you're not a giver but you'd like to become one, you can donate to this QR code or through the Give button, and know that when you do, your generosity is writing amazing stories into people's lives. So thanks so much. Great to see you today. We'll see you next time at the movies.
All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so sing.